It started with a scream. Not the kind you hear in the night, but the kind you feel in your bones. When a group of urban explorers snuck into the long-forgotten Crestwood Asylum, they expected peeling paint, rusted beds, and ghost stories. What they didn't expect was a discovery that would reopen one of the darkest chapters in local history, a pit filled with human skeletons beneath the asylum floor. By the end of this story, you'll understand why those bones were hidden, who they belonged to, and how decades of silence covered up a horrifying truth. Crestwood Asylum once stood proud on the edge of the small town of Fairbridge, Pennsylvania. Built in 1909, it was meant to be a place of healing, a refuge for those suffering from mental illness. But behind its grand brick walls, Crestwood quickly earned another name among locals, the House of Screams. Patients often disappeared from records, families were denied visitation, and the few nurses who quit spoke of unspeakable conditions, solitary cells, untested treatments, and cries echoing through the halls at night. By the late 1970s, Crestwood was abruptly shut down. The official reason? Budget cuts and structural safety concerns. But locals whispered that something much darker led to its closure. For over 40 years, the asylum sat rotting, its windows shattered, its rooms filled with graffiti and dust. No one dared to go near it after dark, until a group of YouTubers decided to change that. In 2022, three friends Ethan, Lara, and Miles ran a small urban exploration channel called Lost Places USA. They specialized in documenting forgotten locations. When they posted on Reddit that they were heading to Crestwood, thousands tuned in for the live stream. At first, it was typical footage: rusted hospital beds, medical files scattered across the floor, and graffiti that said things like "Help me and still here." Then, in the basement, Ethan's flashlight caught something strange, a section of concrete floor that looked uneven. "Guys, look at this," he said, crouching down. The camera tilted, showing faint outlines of bricks and a small metal ring embedded in the ground. They pried it open. The sound of cracking concrete echoed through the basement. The hole revealed a hidden crawl space, barely wide enough for one person. When Miles pointed his light inside, the chat exploded. Because what they saw wasn't debris. It was bone. Police arrived within hours, shutting down the site. The explorers' footage went viral overnight. Authorities initially thought it was an old cemetery site predating the asylum. But forensic analysis revealed something chilling: these weren't 19th century remains. They were mid-20th century, matching the asylum's operational years. There were 27 skeletons in total, some with clear signs of trauma, fractured skulls, broken ribs, even evidence of shackles on the wrists and ankles. The coroner concluded that these people did not die from natural causes. Locals were horrified. Families who had once sent loved ones to Crestwood demanded answers. The state reopened historical records, and what they found deepened the mystery. Between 1947 and 1963, 41 patients were reported transferred from Crestwood but never appeared in any receiving institution. No transfer paperwork, no medical records, nothing. They had simply vanished. At the center of it all was one man, Dr. Harold Greaves, Crestwood's chief psychiatrist. Greaves was once hailed as a pioneer in psychiatric medicine. He believed he could retrain violent or mentally ill patients using experimental surgical procedures. Reports mention early lobotomies, electric shock treatments, and even isolation therapies lasting weeks. After Crestwood closed, Greaves retired quietly, moving to a small home in upstate New York. He died in 1984, never charged with any wrongdoing. But when detectives dug into his old notes, they uncovered something horrifying. Among his papers was a file labeled "Behavioral Failures." Inside were 27 names. Every one of those names matched the DNA results from the skeletons found under the asylum. Further excavation revealed more than bones. Behind the same crawl space, investigators found a small, sealed room. Inside were rusted surgical tools, restraints bolted to the wall, and a decayed operating table. The smell of old antiseptic still clung to the air. Faint etchings were found on the bricks, made by nails or sharp objects. Some spelled out words. Others were just tally marks. One wall bore a haunting phrase. "We were experiments." Investigators pieced together a grim truth. When patients became violent, unresponsive, or disobedient, Greaves labeled them behavioral failures. Instead of reporting their deaths, he buried them beneath the asylum, continuing his work in secret long after official oversight had ended. Months later, while cataloging the recovered artifacts, a forensic specialist noticed something strange. A set of bones didn't match any patient record. The skeleton belonged to a woman in her late 20s, yet there was no trace of her in asylum archives. DNA testing revealed a match to Margaret Greaves, the doctor's own wife. It turned out she had been reported missing in 1952. At the time, Harold Greaves claimed she had left him for another man. Now, evidence suggested she had discovered his secret experiments and paid the ultimate price. Hidden in the margins of his old notes was a final entry, dated weeks after her disappearance. Silence restores order. The state issued a formal apology to the families of the victims. Crestwood was declared a crime scene and eventually demolished. A memorial now stands in its place, bearing only a simple inscription. The YouTubers who discovered the site stopped filming abandoned locations altogether. In interviews, Ethan said, "We went looking for ghosts, but found something much worse. Real monsters leave paperwork." And yet, the story doesn't end there. During cleanup, workers found a rusted lockbox beneath the demolished West Wing. Inside were more files, marked Subject 28 to 35. Authorities haven't released the contents. But if 27 skeletons were found, and the doctor's list went up to 35. The case of the Crestwood Asylum reminds us that the darkest horrors aren't born from legends or ghosts, they're created by human hands, hidden behind walls of authority and silence. It's a story that asks one haunting question. How many more truths are still buried beneath places we've forgotten?